Now, color corrections are mainly in here in image and adjust, and you can see there's a whole range of them here. I'm going to run through some of the basics with you. Some really good stuff, especially in curves, but I'm going to leave that for now. First things first is I'm going to hit the colors themselves. So I'm going to go to color balance. This is reasonably close in color. It's not a major variation, but it's subtle enough. And the way the color balance works, it allows you to push the colors around to their opposites, in a sense, blue to yellow, magenta to green, red to cyan. And it also looks at whether it's going to affect the highlights, midtones, and shadows. Also be aware that there is a preserve luminosity option, which can sometimes be either a help or hindrance, but sometimes it pays to turn it off. So I'm going to start with midtones. That's kind of the top. And again, this is sort of not the dark areas, not the light areas, somewhere in between. So I can look at those and I can look here and I can say, okay, well, it's kind of a bit yellowy, a bit greeny. So you can try and do it mathematically, or you can just literally start pushing these around, and hopefully you can start seeing some sort of variation. And there it is there. So I've pushed the magenta up, so you've got to push it little bit by little bit, and then hopefully you can start seeing the correct variation. Drop into your shadows, and what I usually do is try and have a look inside the shadow areas here, and I actually think there's a little bit of cyan in there, a little bit of light blue, and look at a bit yellow there, so a bit of the subtlety. It can be a little bit tricky to get this just right. I'm going to hit the highlights, a little bit of yellow. So if we look here, there's a little bit of red and yellow in the highlights, and that's getting a little bit closer. It's kind of blending in to the reds and yellows in his neck and stuff like that. So I'm just going to hit OK for now for that. It's a bit saturated overall, so I'm going to go image, adjust, go to hue and saturation, and I'm not going to mess with the hue. That's going to give him all sorts of weird stuff because we've already done a color correction on that. I'm just going to drop the saturation down a little bit, and hopefully it's going to get a little bit closer to what we're looking at. Once I've dropped that down a little bit, I'm going to jump out and go image, adjust, and I'm going to jump into levels. And levels is by far one of my favorites. You can actually adjust colors in here as well, which is a great one. This is going to allow us to choose our darkest point. So over here on the left is pure black, and if we look at this histogram, we can see the darkest point is actually sort of about a 25% grey thereabouts, so it doesn't actually start. But again, it's in relative to the rest of the image, but have a play around with it. If we start pushing this up, see it sort of starts darkening some of the areas, and opposite again is our white areas, so if I start pushing those up, and then we have a balance in between. So it's just a matter of sort of figuring out how dark our darkest point is, how light our lightest point is, and sort of the variation in between. Anyway, we can spend quite a bit of time playing around with that, but I'm going to just go with that.